Hand it up.
Grab it now.
Take it down.
You just...
Take it down. Put it on. Take it off.
I already did all
Take
this.
it off.
You just tell me why I'm
Take
doing this?
it off. Hand it up. Take it down. Put it in the ground. Pick it up. Hang up. Take it down. Put it on. Take it off. Put it on the ground. Pick it up. Hang it up. Take it down. Put it on. Take it off.
Mr. Han, why do you have a car in your living room?
No street parking.
I'm done. They can beat me up if they want to. And you know why you only have one student? Because you don't know Kung Fu.
小追
What?
Come here. Check it on.
Mr. Han, I already...
Check it on. Check it on. Be strong. Check it on. Firm. Check it off. Remember, always strong. Check it off. Strong. Left foot back. Right feet back. Left feet back.
Sometimes, God just doesn't make sense, right? Sometimes the things that God leads us to doesn't make sense. Sometimes the difficult things that God allows us to experience doesn't make sense. Sometimes the ways that God calls us to live our lives, if we're going to call ourselves Christians, if we're going to give our hearts to Jesus, sometimes the way that God calls those people to live, that is so counterintuitive to our culture. It is so different than the way our world, our TV shows, our friends, our teachers, professors in college, bosses at work, it's so opposite of the way that so many of the things around us function. We end up going, why, Mr. Han? Why? I already did this. You come to church and you hear somebody teach and say, hey, be strong in the Lord. I've already been being strong. Love other people. I've been loving people. Forgive other people just as Christ forgave you. Yeah. I forget that. Why is my life not exactly the way I want it to be? Why, Mr. Han? You guys are going to go home tonight and pray. Dear Mr. Han. Sometimes it doesn't make sense. And we're in this series called The Church and the World. Because guess what? We don't get to just be the church in the church. We don't get to hang out here every day. Nor should we. We don't always just get to hang out with people who share biblical ideas and have a biblical foundation for their life. We just don't get to. Nor should we. We are called to be the church in the world, which means that we are going to live as part of the world, but then there's that dynamic of going, well, how do we not just adopt everything that the world says? And we live in a culture where the stuff that God does and allows to happen in our lives and calls us to sometimes just doesn't make sense, which puts us all, whether you're a 7th grader or you're as old as Tim, you are faced with the question of, what are you going to do when God doesn't make sense? What wisdom are you going to seek? What advice for life? What calling on your life are you going to go after? Because God gives us all kinds of calling on our life, and God gives us all sorts of direction on how to live in a way that is going to bring life. Who else gives you direction for your life? Parents? Who else? What? Friends. I think you said nuns. I suppose. If you go to St. Lucy's, that's true. Huh? Teachers. Who else? Professors. Pastors. The guys at the airport. Yeah. You know, somebody walks up to him and goes, hey, where's the bathroom? It's over there. You know. Yeah. Okay. Mr. Hahn. Movies. We have a culture full of people who want to tell us, hey, this is what you need to do to be successful, to be rich, to be popular, to be loved, all kinds of things. And we are faced when what God calls us to do doesn't make sense. What are you going to pursue? Now, you can blow it off for a while. You can come to youth group and you can nod your head when I talk. You can sing the songs that declare these truths, and you can blow off this idea of what choice are you going to make on who you're going to follow? You can kind of just go along with it for a while, but I promise you that every single one of you in this room, some of you have already experienced, but I guarantee every one of us will at some point come to a place where you just go, why, God? What am I supposed to do now? In this situation where my parents are getting divorced and I hate it. In this situation where my best friend that I thought I could count on stabbed me in the back. When people tease me. When I fail at something. When I don't make a team. What wisdom are you going to pursue? What relationship are you going to pursue? Because I promise you that in every turn, the world is going to have a solution for you. What they say is a solution. The world is going to have whatever kind of advice they think is going to get you through whatever you're facing. And last week we looked at this decision that you've got to make about your identity. Who are you going to be? Are you going to be who the world says you are? Are you going to take on the label that says stubborn, sassy, popular, musical, athletic, and is that going to be what you allow to define you? Or are you going to allow it to go deeper into a relationship with God where you recognize, I'm God's kid, and he loves me unconditionally? What are you going to own? So we go from that into who are you, into who you're going to listen to. Where are you going to get your wisdom from? Because we've all got plenty of sources, don't we? We've all got plenty of people and things that want to contribute into what we believe. So right now, around your tables, I want you to talk about this for just a minute. What are some pieces of advice or wisdom that you have received or that you've heard of? Now, some of these may be biblical kinds of things, but what are some of the other things, the other suggestions for making your life better, or the things that people have said to you that have been wisdom or advice in your life. I'll just give you one, just to give you an example. My grandpa said, Jeff, most important thing you can do, invest your money wisely. So that was a piece of advice, and it came from grandpa, and so like, ooh, but what am I going to do with that? So right now, around your tables, what are some pieces of advice or wisdom, things that you've heard about or that somebody has said to you? Go. Okay. Share with me some wisdom that has been imparted on you. What are some of the things that people have said to you? Try hard in school.
Stay sideways on your serve.
Stay sideways on your serve. Don't worry about things you can't control.
Don't stand up in a canoe with 3 other people.
Don't stand up in a canoe with 3 other people. What else? Choose your friends wisely.
Don't drop out of school.
Don't drop out of school. Take your relationship with God seriously. Don't be a... Wow. Got real. So, yes, all of these things like, hey, when life gives you lemons, make lemonade. Practice makes perfect. All kinds of things. I actually looked up some quotes about success and getting ahead in the world. And I didn't want just like I didn't want only the little cliche kinds of things. I wanted to know, like, what do serious people think about getting ahead? And there was a lot of good stuff, a lot of things that talk about like applying yourself and working hard and those kinds of things. Here are some of the ones that just struck me in terms of just, this is definitely how our culture says to think about success or measure your success or to get ahead. This is one CEO said this: life is all about trying to get somewhere first. That's pretty true, right? I mean, that's the way our culture really handles things. Here's one. A way to measure your success: whoever dies with the most toys wins. We kind of live that way, don't we? Accumulate, get what you have, whatever you can, get as much as you can, and then wow, look at how successful this person was. One of the richest men in the world was asked, how much money do you need? You know what his response was? $1 more. We live that way, don't we? Life is about following your passion. Whatever you're into, whatever you feel passionate about, go after that. And then anything you can conceive, do you know the rest of this one? You can achieve. Anything you can conceive, you can achieve. And so these are all the mindsets of a culture that is absolutely consumed with itself. We live in a culture that absolutely believes that we're enough. We live in a culture that is going to tell you your entire life that you have the power to shape your own destiny. You have the power to get through anything just in and of yourself. You are going to be able to do it. Whatever you think of, you can achieve. Whatever you need to do to get the most toys so that people look at you and go, ooh, la, la. And we live in a culture that is consumed with itself. Our culture is absolutely convinced it knows how to be happy. Our culture is absolutely convinced that it knows how to be successful. Our culture absolutely believes that it knows what to tell you to help you get through the day. How many of you have ever been in a place where you just didn't know how you were going to make it through the day? And suddenly, all these little, hey, you can do it. Like, no, I can't. So Paul, the Apostle Paul, is writing a letter to the believers in Corinth. These are people who have put their faith in Jesus. And yet Corinth was a place a lot like California is today. It was a major hub of trade and commerce. People traveled there. If something needed to happen, you went to Corinth. Corinth was a serious place. It's where serious business was done. It's one of the big cities, and so people would go there on vacation. You know, it was a big deal. And so Paul is writing to the Christians in Corinth who are surrounded by this culture that is consumed with itself. It's telling the Christians, hey, this is what you need to do to be happy. This is what you need to do to be successful. This is what you need to do to be content. And Paul writes them this letter. And in chapter 1, starting in verse 18, it says, for the message of the cross is foolish to those who are perishing, to those without a relationship with Jesus. But to us who are being saved, it is the power of God. So, first, we need to ask this. What is the message of the cross? Okay, you tell me. What's the message of the cross? What does that mean when I say the message of the cross?
Why he died?
The message of the cross. Okay, why did he die on the cross? To what? To forgive our sins. Okay. What else? What else did Jesus dying on the cross, what does that show us? What does that tell us? That he loves us. Okay, so it speaks of God's love for us. In a very normal and simple way. I mean, somebody dying on a cross, is that a very straightforward, simple way of saying I love you to somebody? It's not. So even right there, this is God not going through normal channels to show his love. He didn't just go, hey, love ya. He goes, look, I love you so much. I'm going to make it possible for you to have an eternal relationship with me. I'm going to make it possible so that during these 60, 70, 80 years that you have on earth, you can have a relationship with me because all the ways that you've lived against God can be forgiven, can be erased. You can come directly to me. You don't need to pray through a priest. You don't need a pastor. You can just come directly to me. I will fill you with my spirit that will lead you and guide you and give you wisdom. This is the message of the cross. But this is ridiculous in a culture that says, no, you're good enough. All you have to do is try hard. All you have to do is work hard in school, get into the right college, get the right degree, get the right job, marry the right person, and you're set. In a culture that says it's all about your decisions, it's all about what you have to do, this idea that you would need to be saved by someone else, this idea that you would need something other than yourself to guide you is foolishness. So he says the message of the cross is foolishness to those who are perishing. But to us who are being saved, it is the power of God. And maybe you're here today and you wrestle with this idea of like, well, I think I am okay. I think I am good enough. I think I have my act together. I think I am able to make wise decisions. I think I am smart enough. I want to challenge you with this question, and this is up to you of how you're going to process this, but I want to challenge you with this. What if you're wrong? What if you're not good enough? What if you're not smart enough? What if everything can't be figured out logically? What if everything doesn't make sense? Actually, let me change that. What about when everything doesn't make sense? What about when you can't figure it out? What about when you're not strong enough? You're again faced with this decision. What wisdom are you going to choose? Because one's going to lead you back to the world, back to this circular thinking of, you're enough, I don't feel like enough, oh, maybe I am enough, you're enough, no, I'm not, yes, I'm, oh, and it's just this circle. So the world's wisdom is going to lead you back to the world. God's wisdom is going to lead you to life. For it is written, I will destroy the wisdom of the wise. The intelligence of the intelligent I will frustrate. Where is the wise person? Where is the teacher of the law? Where is the philosopher of this age? Has not God made foolish the wisdom of the world? Has not God made foolish the wisdom of the world? So he's saying, I'll destroy the wisdom of the wise. The things that wise people say, the things that culture says, this is going to make your life. How has God made that wisdom foolish? Think about it. Think about people you know. Think about maybe celebrities, I don't know. How has God made that wisdom of the wise? How does he prove that it's foolish? Who do you think in our culture should be the happiest? Give me some of the traits, some of the things that would be true about their life that you would think they would be the happiest people on earth.
They have a lot of money.
Money. What else?
Toys.
Toys. They're smart. They're beautiful. The what? Phones? They have all the phones and the gadgets and the technology, yeah? There's jobs they love going to. They're popular. They're successful. They have a family. So, as you look at it, do you know any of these people? I mean, are there people who have all this stuff? There are. I mean, there's billionaires with families, and they have all the yachts and the planes and the businesses, and they have a passion for what they're doing and all of these things. And yet, over and over and over again, whether it's rock stars like the late Kurt Cobain, who everybody was just like, he was the lead singer in Nirvana, by the way, which was a band back in the 90s, which Tim remembers. And so, or it's Mel Gibson, or it's Donald Trump, or it's whoever. You sit down with these people and you ask them, so, does money solve it? Nope. Are you completely fulfilled having a business? Well, no. So, does your family fulfill all your needs? No. And yet these people that we look to, that we go, oh, well, that's what I have to attain. That's the way that the world says I can be happy, I can be fulfilled. God has made these things foolish by not allowing them to make us content. That billionaire who was asked, how much money do you need? $1 more. Have you ever been so close to something and yet so far away? I see this all the time in rock climbing. It's like you're that far. You know what that far away means? you fall down. It doesn't matter. How frustrating. What an unfulfilled life to always be grasping and for it never to be enough. Here, Paul is going, look, where's the philosopher? Where's the smart people? Where's the people who have it all together? Where's the people who were able to start their own businesses and become billionaires? Where's the people who invented something and it changes the world? Steve Jobs, the guy who was head of Apple, in book after book after book, it is documented he was one of the most miserable people on the planet. He was angry. He treated people bad. He treated his family bad. He was mean. And it all came out of this. It wasn't because he wasn't successful. It wasn't because he didn't have money. It wasn't because he couldn't do anything that he wanted to do. It was just not fulfilling. And here, this is what Paul's talking about. God made foolish the wisdom of the world. All the things that the world is going to try and tell you, hey, just do this, just do this. God's telling us it doesn't work. Money, fame, reputation, it doesn't fulfill you. And it never will. For since in the wisdom of God, the world through its wisdom did not know him. See, when we're seeking all the world's wisdom, we miss God. We stop looking for what God's doing because a lot of times God is doing it like Mr. Han. A lot of times God's wisdom, it doesn't make sense. It's not something we would think to apply to this situation. And so we miss it. Since the wisdom of God, the world through its wisdom did not know him. God was pleased through the foolishness of what was preached to those who believe. Jews demand signs, and Greeks look for wisdom. But we preach Christ crucified, a stumbling block to Jews and foolishness to Gentiles. But to those whom God has called, both Jews and Greeks, Christ, the power of God and the wisdom of God. For the foolishness of God is wiser than human wisdom, and the weakness of God is stronger than human strength. Paul's pointing out that all the philosophies, all the wisdom, all the things that the world is going to tell you, hey, do this. If you don't do this, you're a loser. If you don't do this, you're not smart. If you don't do this, you're not going to have enough money. Paul's going, look, all of that is made foolish. And back in this time, it was the Jews and the Greeks that he's pointing out and going, hey, this is what these people are seeking. Today, it may be the Republicans and the Democrats. It may be the jocks and the band people. It may be whatever circles you're running in. What are they seeking? Think about your life right now. Think about the people that are around you in your life, not just at your table, but around you in your life. What are they seeking? And what are they encouraging you to seek? Some of the ways the wisdom of God is foolish to those who are perishing. I'm going to tell you what each of these verses speaks to, and I want you to tell me why the world would call it foolish, okay? God's ways are not our ways. Why is that foolish to the world?
Because they want to have their own way.
Would you just acknowledge that we like to have our way, right? We like to do things our way because we feel like we can control our way, right? The idea that God's ways are not our ways, that God doesn't do things the way that we do them, that seems foolish. Don't lean on your own understanding. Why would that be foolish? Why would it be foolish not to lean on your own understanding? You calling me dumb? You saying I can't figure this out? You saying I can't get us through this? You say I don't know what to do? We live in a culture consumed with itself. God says, don't lean on your own understanding. Dre wanted to lean on his own understanding. He thought, all the moves I learned at the YMCA, all the things that I can do because I'm flexible. He wanted to lean on his own understanding because that was going to make life simpler. He thought he was so far ahead. If you've seen that movie, he thought he was so far ahead, and Mr. Han was just going to be able to teach him some little, tricks. Don't lean on your own understanding. Turn the other cheek. What would our culture say? Not turn the other cheek, but fight back, okay? Learn Muay Thai, okay? Learn to grapple. Okay, I'm picking on people that I know are in. That, nothing wrong with those things. I'm talking about a mindset, okay? God says, turn the other cheek. We live in a culture that says, someone hits you, hit them back. Someone betrays you, vengeance. Go after them, make them pay. Matthew 5:44, love those who hate you. Is that ridiculous in our culture? If somebody hates you, what should you do? Hate them backer. Right? Or hater them back. Okay? Whatever they do to you, you just do it to them worse. Matthew 18:21, forgive, not just once, not just 7 times, but 70 times 7. And even 490 isn't the number, the magic number of it. It's saying that just forgive. Always be willing to forgive. Is that ridiculous in our culture? Man, I might forgive you once. Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me, and then you're done. In our weakness, he is strong. How many of you would proudly say that you are weak? Right. We know that's the right answer, right? It's like, yes, I am weak. But in our weakness, he's strong. In what other area of our culture and in our life are people telling you, hey, be weak? In fact, be proud that you are weak. Flaunt that you are weak and that you are dependent on someone else. Where do we do that? Nowhere. I have been seriously injured in places where I'm like, no, I'm fine. I'm okay. It's like, even when we're hurt, bleeding from the neck. No, I'll be fine. Right? Nowhere do we say or flaunt that we are weak. We are told to be strong. It's completely against our culture. And the idea that God is able to give us peace beyond our understanding. There's that word understanding again. Over and over, we are told in God's word to us, in his letter to us, look, it's okay to be weak. It's in your weakness, I'll be strong. It's in your darkness that I'll be light. It's in your hopelessness that I will bring hope. And we have a culture that's screaming, no, you have to do it yourself. You can't just depend on God in our culture because they're saying it's all up to you. And I know that many, all of us, at different times in our life, we've bought into this. And I have sat with freshmen in high school. These are 14-year-old people with stomach ulcers because they are so anxious and they're so tied up about what's going to happen in their future because they don't know, they are so swamped, taking 5 AP classes and their GPA is only 4.4, and how are they ever going to get into Harvard if they don't do well at 14? And actually, we're going to talk more about this on Tuesday and Wednesday, so you should come out. But we have a culture that says it's all up to you. Brothers and sisters, Listen to what the picture he paints. Brothers and sisters, think of what you were when you were called. So he's talking about Christians. People who have said, I believe that God is with me, that God has chosen me, that God accepts me. So, brothers and sisters, think of who you were when God accepted you. Not many of you were wise by human standards. He calls them dumb, right? He's like, hey, none of you were the sharpest knife in the drawer, okay? You were just normal people. Not many were influential. What? This isn't like got all the popular kids in school here, right? Not many were of noble birth, but God chose the foolish things of the world to shame the wise. God chose the weak things of the world to shame the strong. God chose the lowly things of this world and the despised things and the things that are not, to nullify the things that are, so that no one may boast before him. It is because of him that you are in Christ Jesus, who has become for us wisdom from God, that is our righteousness, holiness, and redemption. Therefore, as it is written, let the one who boasts boast in the Lord. So he pulls out, think about these things. He pinpoints the wise. Okay, you think you're wise? You think you're smart? You think you can just logic your way through life, that you're going to be able to figure this out? The influential, what, you think power is going to work? You think you got to be powerful? You think you got to have great status? You think if you get popular enough, if you have enough people telling you how cool you are, you think you're strong? Think that you can handle anything? Each of these things are things that the world says, you got to have this. And straight up, God is saying, I chose the opposite of this to bring life. Jesus was born in a barn. He wasn't born to royalty. He didn't grow up a scholar. He didn't have tremendous status. They hung him on a cross. It's the way they kill criminals. God chose the simple things. God chose the unreasonable. God chose the stuff that when you look around and you compare it to our culture, doesn't make any sense, to bring us life. But we have a world that is screaming at us, be wise, be influential, have great status, and be strong. Don't let anybody take you down. What are you pursuing? What wisdom are you going after? And honestly, I think one of the best ways we can judge this, it isn't just this like head game or there's thing like, oh, I've got to change this. Look at your actions. Look at the things that you're pursuing. What are the things that you are putting hour after hour after hour toward? What are the things that you're giving up? What are the relationships that you're giving up? What are the things of God that you are giving up in order to attain one of these things? Now, I'm not saying it's bad to have goals. I'm not saying it's wrong to be part of a team or that you can't have hobbies or what are you pursuing? And what is your motivation behind it? Because I guarantee you that the students that I have sat with over the years, at 14, 15, 16 years old, who have ulcers to the point where they have to be hospitalized because they're so anxious about their SAT scores. They're so anxious about how they're going to do in AP Stat. They're so anxious about whether their girlfriend is going to break up with them or not. I'm not making this up, you guys. It happens when we pursue the wisdom of the world that says this is what you've got to have. Because guys, guess what? You can't ever get enough of this. There's never enough that the world is going to go, oh, there it is. You've arrived. And how do we know this? Because the people that we would assume have arrived will tell you, I haven't arrived. I'm still discontent. I still wish that there was more. But what are you willing to do about it? Because here is the truth. The wisdom of the world leads back to the world. And it's going to be a vicious circle that you're never, ever, ever going to get out of. And you're never, ever, ever going to be content. But the wisdom of God leads to life. The world says, hate somebody who hates you. God says, love them, bless them, blow their minds with your love toward them. It's different. It's a lot more work, and you're probably going to have people looking at you and go, what? But it leads to life. It leads to hope. It leads to peace. But what are you willing to do about it? What wisdom are you going to pursue? Is it going to be this list? Or is it going to be a list that leads to life, hope, joy, peace beyond your own understanding? So God, I lift up every person in this room. We need you because we live in a culture that gives us a tremendous list of things that we should do. And they give us really convenient ways to make those things happen and really motivational ways to make sure that we are the focus of everything. But God, we don't want to be consumed with ourselves. So I pray that you would convict our hearts, that you would show us the ways that we've just been consumed with what we want and what we think we can do to get there. And I pray that you would bring us to a place where we would listen to your voice, that you would lead us, and that even when it doesn't make sense, even when we don't know why we should have to, that we would be willing to follow you. In Jesus' name, amen.